year with less than 7,000 hours for a total price of $77,500.
I don't know if I'm good.
Cat has bid a 140M motor grader for $112,600, excuse me. And does it say what year model it is? Does not.
You guys know what year model that cat is?
I think that was
What?
You can look and see when
I think part of the bid specs, it had to be 2012 or newer.
Yeah, this is a 2011 model.
I thought it was 2012 or older, or later.
Later.
Oh, did it? Did I read that wrong?
Well,
I was just reading the agenda here. Let me
So-
it's on the agenda. It says 2012 or newer. It's the reason I said that.
So that's
I just-
later.
Well, I don't know about the bid. I'm just telling you what the agenda said.
Yeah.
well, the bid does say later with the intent to be newer, is what later means in that regard. Late model? Yes. A late model vehicle is a newer vehicle, not, okay.
But that one, is there one?
That's normally the term we
Yeah,
use.
Right, yeah.
Right. So, I don't know.
What,
If
table
there's
it?
confusion there, do we need to have it rebid, or?
I think that as common phrasing, if you bid something a later than that year would be closer to newer.
Right.
Otherwise it'd have been older. But I would leave that to this board to determine whether they want to reject all and rebid.
I'll tell you what I would like to do. I'd like to look at both of them and then come back to the board. We've got a special meeting for Thursday. Can we put that on to close that out for Thursday?
Yeah, I can do an addendum.
Okay.
All right, so no action on item 5 today. We'll table it.
Can I hang on to these?
I'm sorry.
I'll
item
get you
6.
copies.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
That was item 6 that we're on the table. Item 7, consideration and possible action to appoint, reappoint members to the Guthrie I-1 EMS district.
Motion to appoint Anderson and Calvin.
Sarah, can you make?
Before we get into that, can we kind of discuss, we got 6 applicants for this, and just kind of jump out there and appoint, reappoint. We've got several well-qualified applicants there. I'm not going to second that, by the way. But we've got several applicants on there. We've got 2 board members that reapplied. One of them's been on there for, I think I read where he said 13 years. And one of them's been on there for probably just as many. And, you know, I'd like to see us get some new blood on that board. We've had several people that have applied for it, and several people in our county that's interested in serving the county on these boards. And if we just keep reappointing and reappointing everybody that's on there, then I'm not sure we're serving the best interest of the county. I have 2 others that I'd like to appoint. So if you want to take that up, I'm not going to second it.
Well, I mean, my whole issue is the Guthrie EMS board. I think we got a good functioning board. I think Mr. Anderson and Jim Overton do a good job, and I mean, I don't have an issue. I think they operate well. I don't know why we wouldn't reappoint them, because I think that they're both qualified as well.
Again, we've
But,
got, we've got
I mean,
4
we're
other
here to
people that
discuss
are
it.
interested in serving the county. One of them is Lenny Crawford. Lenny's a well-respected member of our community. Lenny's in the medical business. That's what he does for a living. He's in the medical business, understands those sorts of things, and I think he would be a great addition to the board. I think I don't disagree with what you've said, Monty, about, you know, the board's done an okay job, you know, to this point. I do have a little bit of an issue with the way the ambulance service may or may not be conducted outside the city limits of Guthrie, where it seemed to me the city council was directing some actions be taken outside the city limits of where the ambulance service would function, in particular at the Lazy Arena. They had to go get an ambulance service, emergency ambulance service for the PBR event over there because the city of Guthrie didn't want to support it. And so that was outside the city limits of Guthrie, but they still had that influence. I think that we need an ambulance board that will at least look at that and provide some information back, kind of figure out what it is that we want to do. Our board, this is the only time our board gets a chance to express the wishes and desires of the rest of the county that's being served by this ambulance board.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but the problem is the Guthrie EMS board that we're talking about today contracted to the city of Guthrie.
Exactly.
So the board really don't have no say-so if they go or not.
So they
Because-
would have to change their contract with another entity, and I'm not seeing that's gonna happen, unless somehow they could force Guthrie, to do that.
Well, I'm not sure I understand that the way that you all just explained it to me, right?
Mhm.
The EMS board does contract for services, right? The services that the EMS board is required to provide, not the city of Guthrie. So if the EMS board determines the contract specifications, which that's what they should do, right? Then it's up to whoever they contract with to fulfill those or not. So if in the past, and that's all I can go on, in the past, all the events over at the Lazy, since I started off with that, I use it as an example, have had the Guthrie EMS I-1 ambulance service, because it's outside of the city. It wasn't a city deal, it was a board deal. Has set their own site while they were having events, because that's pretty much the standard, the way things have done. Up until this last event where the PBR wanted to come back in, and the city decided that they didn't want to support it. Again, I'm not sure why that was their decision, but that should have been a service that is being provided by the ambulance board, not by the city. The city provides, the city EMS, the fire and EMS service is contracted by the board to provide a service to the board, provide a service to the community, not the other way around.
So, does the Lazy E lay in the school district?
Yes.
Well, then naturally they should have been there. I mean,
Right.
but it's not the EMS board's fault, it's city council's fault.
Mhm.
I don't see, I don't understand how, I understand what you're saying. The city council's the one that said that too, but in my mind, that, when that happened, the EMS board should have said, wait a minute, you're overstepping your boundaries. If it was within the city limits of Guthrie, I can see where they might have a dog in that fight, the city council, but not outside the city limits. That has to do with the EMS board.
So what you're saying is they were in violation of the contract?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm
Oh,
saying,
okay. Or there ought to be a contract that addresses that, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that the way I understand the way that board is supposed to work, is that board contracts for ambulance service to the people that live in the school district. That's their job.
Right.
And if we're not providing that ambulance service as expected to the communities, then this is the only chance we get to say we believe that needs to be done. My greatest concern is that we have a few progressives that want to influence a company in the unincorporated areas of Logan County that adds over $62 million in economic development to not just our part of Logan County, but to the businesses that come in and support things that are going on with Lazy. $62 million of economic development since the PBR started to the end of this year is what the estimate is.
So what you're saying is, in my book anyhow, is that when they refused service there, they were in violation of the contract. The Lazy E deserved to have that there because they've been paying the taxes on it. And as a consequence, they have a dog in the hunt. They need to be pursuing the reimbursement of the ambulance service that they had to obtain. And, you know, but that doesn't have anything to do with the board and what kind of equipment that we're going to provide so that they'll be able to get out into the outback of Logan County, which is my concern is that they need to be able to get out there in the outback. Now we've got Mr. Overton is an excellent accountant, and he's been there forever, and we have a really good audit that came out. And I think that his expertise when it comes to money matters cannot be compared to anybody that's been given to the board. The same thing goes for the economic knowledge that Barry Anderson has when it comes to the operation of that board and being able to provide the kind of service that, yes, we do expect out in the outback of Logan County. So it's my humble opinion that the people that have been selected here are all on asphalt, and we have most of our county in this district is on dirt, and those things need to be addressed. And I'm not seeing that is going to happen with the ones that you have that have been submitted, and I would suggest that we need to go with the people that we know because they perform, they're very good at what they're doing, and they're doing exactly what the contract and the bylaws for that is supposed to do. So I'm not seeing a conflict on that, and the Lazy E needs to pursue the problem they have with not having received services.
Well, I think what we're missing here is I mean, I see your point. I agree. I think they should have been sitting there. But, you know, when they sign that contract, they're not going to say, hey, I'm going to have an ambulance sitting at Chris's house. I mean, just because they're having an event don't mean they have to have an ambulance there. I mean, they're not violating any contract. They never signed a contract, but yeah, if we get this contract, we'll have an ambulance sitting there. Now, would it be nice to have one there? Yes, it would. But I wonder if they have done it in the past.
They have always done it in the past. That's my point. It's always been there in the past.
And I wonder if
rodeo events always have an ambulance on site.
Sure do.
And up until that point, our EMS I-1 ambulance service has provided that.
Yeah. I guess my point is they don't have to have it sitting there. I wonder in the past if Lazy E makes donations to the ambulance service for having it sitting there on site while they're there.
Do they pay for that?
I know they paid private security to come in. I didn't know if they, made donations or.
I know they had to.
And I know they don't have to. They shouldn't have to.
I know they had to pay a private medical service to come in for that PBR event.
But I
It
agree.
was an additional charge that they told me they haven't ever had to pay before.
I agree that
There you
you
go.
brought some good applications to the table, but I also agree with Mike. I think we got a good functioning board, and I'm gonna second Mike's motion. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No,
The motion carries. Item number 8, consideration and possible action on accepting resignation of Gina Davis from the Logan County Fair Board and possible action to accept applicants to fill vacancy.
I thought Dennis was gonna be here. He called me earlier last week. Gina Davis has submitted her resignation. She's got some family situations that she's dealing with. And so the position, this is a District 1 position. I'll remind you that the Fair Board members are actually elected, 3 to a district. This is a District 1 position. And weren't sure how we wanted to go about this. Dennis did say he has someone to recommend. Again, I thought he was going to be here.
I mean, I'm okay with their recommendation, but that's kind of been this board, we accepted the policy that we would
And I
go out
explained
for
that to him.
applications. And so it's your district, Marvin, you want to go out for applications? You think one of these applicants would like to do it?
it's an elected position, right?
It is.
Yeah, so this would be to fill out the term, and I believe her term ends in 22.
Wasn't she just elected? Yeah. So, interesting.
She has a personal family issue.
I understand those happen. What's the option of putting it on a ballot again?
I don't believe, we went through this quite a few years ago, that the law allows us to do a special election for this position. I can double check that, but off the top of my head, I don't believe that is an option under the statute.
Want to accept the resignation and go out for applications?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna accept her resignation. I mean, she doesn't want to serve anymore. That's certainly something that I move we approve the resignation. As far as filling that, I'd like to see what the options are on letting the people decide again, because that's what we should do to start with. If we can't do it that way, then we should discuss what's best to fill that position and possibly involve the folks from the Fair Board to see what they think as well.
Can I put this back on for the first meeting in October, and then I can get all that hammered out?
Works for me.
There you go.
So we had a motion to.
I'll second
to
it.
accept. So I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. 9, consideration of possible action to approve a resolution to retire K-9 Darko and release to handler James Daves.
Pam and I owe you an apology. This hit my desk while I was still working up the agenda and didn't realize that you had intended it for the 30th of September.
That's okay, we can roll with it.
Okay.
Basically what we had, Jim Days is retiring at the end of this month after 40 some years in law enforcement. Darko is an older dog, not going to be good to put with a new handler. And typically when a situation like this arises, the K-9 is retired with the handler. That's what we're requesting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second. Just under discussion, what happens if the board rejects that? The dog stays on?
It maintains the property of the county and we figure out something to do with it.
Gotta keep feeding it.
So motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Sure you have to. Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 10, consideration and possible action on approving transfer of funds to distribute CARES Act reimbursed to the Health Department, Sheriff's Department, General Government in total amount of $7,125.80.
So I've sent all the communications out to the board this week on CARES Act. This was already in process, and so the auditor's office said for me to complete for this $7,100 in this manner. They've since, and I've sent you all the bulletin, changed how we have to work the CARES money from this point forward. It's broke down what account gets what for this reimbursement run.
You haven't had any protesters yet, have you?
Not yet.
Good. I make a motion to approve.
A second.
I got a motion and a second. Just on a comment, I don't know about this whole CARE Act thing, but whatever. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. I hate when they just throw out government money and we'll spend it or we'll spend it somewhere else. Heaven forbid we save it. Use it on something we ought to use it on. 11, consideration of possible action to approve resolution designating disbursements of the future reimbursement of CARE Act.
So to follow up, I did send you the bulletin on how we are supposed to account for CARES funds moving forward. I sent you a resolution that I had proposed for you all to consider. It can be changed, but I didn't send it out. I assume you all have it. So we can discuss to go with this or to change it.
I move we approve. I've read it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the motion carries.
I have no items for 12 and 13.
Got any for 14?
I do.
All right, consideration of possible action on consent agenda items.
And this would be payroll.
I don't know about the payroll. That cat grader y'all bid, is it sitting in the city yard, or is it sitting in your Oklahoma City yard, or
Abilene.
Abilene?
That's 6,050 hours.
We might be getting a 15 here fairly soon. Just what? How about that?
These are all stapled together. Well.
markers. sit for consent.
Make a motion to accept consent.
I was gonna give Martin a little bit to get through them.
Sure.
Thank you, Martin.
That's what it's all about. 3 sets is better than 1 set of eyes, that's for sure. I guess it goes to a lot more than 3 though.
Especially 20 of the first set of eyes and the first set of eyes. I think.
I don't catch anything. I try.
Well, as long as you don't catch the COVID. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on consent agenda items? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Item 15, consideration and possible action on approving claims for payment of September 2020.
Here we go, folks.
Notice how thin that stack is.
Yeah. Oh, boy. You do a good job.
Those are the departments.
That's because we're out of money.
There you go.
I tell you, everyone does a lot better job than they used to. I remember that stack. I had to have a dolly to get it over here.
So she's wanting to buy one anyway.
Yeah.
She told me a while
With the
ago.
motor on it.
A lift jack. Just carry the paperwork around.
Sometimes it feels like,
Sure, I think you ran this one through twice.
Looks like it. Oh, we got signatures on it.
let me see what she did. Oh, and I can tell you why. This is the reissue for Atlas.
Okay.
No,
Hmm.
no, correction. It's not, it's Quapaw. We had to reissue their check. And so she just pulled it out. It really does not need to go through here twice. I had to do a reissue, they lost a check.
That happened quite a bit, losing people.
You know, unfortunately, yes. I seem to do more lost in mail reissues than I used to.
What about paychecks?
We, not often, but we have had the occasional, I washed it in my jeans. Hell of it, my hand while I was riding a motorcycle down the road and it blew out of my hand.
I know I had a guy that went a little over, coming up on a year, and he never did take it to the bank. He said, well, I guess I can. But you need to.
We have the occasional have to replace a paycheck. That's it for once.
I'll move that we approve the
Second.
claims. Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
16, consideration and possible action on approving purchase card payments for September 2020. I think this thing's a good thing, but I sure wish they'd open that door on up.
I know, we're gonna work towards that. I actually have a Zoom class at 1 o'clock this afternoon, so we can keep, it's required for those of us that hold the P cards, that we have to do retraining, so.
Move we approve item 16.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 17, any citizens desiring to be heard?
I would remind the chairman we have an addendum.
Sorry.
First advice.
There it is. We do have an addendum, so consideration on possible action to receive updated information pertaining to all equipment under lease purchase in District 2.
Waiting on an email from Lowell.
I've not heard from all.
So we'll place it back on the agenda when we get the information that we're looking for.
I guess, we need to query Lowell on what the quandary is. Normally he gets back pretty quick on those things.
I can send him an email this afternoon, or you
Sure.
emailed him. I mean,
Sure.
I just sent the contract, so maybe you
Right.
should email him.
Okay. Like that to be available for our next board meeting. In other words, yeah.
Well,
Or
I'm
have
not
his
sure-
opinion on
I'm not
it.
sure he needs to be available for the next board meeting, but we need to have his opinion on, there's a couple statutes there that cover, the end of the year and disposal of equipment. And honestly, I don't believe that we're dealing with being able to declare, we don't need to declare a lease excess because it never belonged to the county to start with. It's not
Surplus.
It's not surplus because it's not a piece of county equipment. You have to own it before you can surplus it.
Lease purchase. Okay.
I mean, if you don't own it, you can't surplus it. That's
See what Lowell says.
well, my point is, we don't need to surplus it. We just need to finish, we need to do what the lease says, right? So you go back to the contract, and that's what we need Lowell's opinion on is what are we bound to in the contract?
Right.
Okay.
So is that the question that we emailed Lowell? I wasn't at this board meeting, so give me up to date, Troy. Did you email Lowell the question?
Actually, Commissioner Pearson made original contact with Lowell on the status of the contract for this particular piece of equipment that's out of hours and out of years on the contract. My only interaction was Lowell emailed me and asked me for a copy of the contract itself, which I sent him. I've heard nothing from him since.
Do we have a copy of the email that, because I don't think Monty got a copy of the email that we distributed at our last meeting.
I don't
I have
think
the
the email
email.
is in that stack, Mark, and I'm not sure that I got a copy of the actual email.
Okay, so we probably need to
I'll
get that
track it.
and send it out to at least Monty so he can see it. But if I remember correctly, what actually transpired was that Mike sent an email to the state auditor's office.
That's correct.
Who then advised Mike that this is a legal issue and you need to talk to the DA about it, not the state auditor, right?
Correct.
Because the state auditor doesn't have a basis in establishing whether or not you're in violation of the contract or not. That's not their job. So at that point, I think what I saw from the email trail was Mike sent what he had sent to the state auditor to Lowell, and then Lowell asked for the contracts so he could look at what the contract actually said. And that's the last email that I've seen on it.
And that's the
I
last
don't,
email I've seen on it.
well, and so going back to what Monty had brought up, I'm not sure that our board has asked Lowell specifically to do anything other than he's just looking at contracts. What we need to know, what we need to do is, as a board, how do we unleash ourselves from this contract, from what appears to be a breach of contract, and get this cleared off our books. If what I understand from the Warren Cat people that were here last time, their position is that the original contract is now null and void because of the hours. And because of that, the offer to allow the county to give the equipment back or pay the balloon payment is also null and void. The balloon payment, it now only serves as a marker against which they want the difference between the appraised value now with the current hours on it, 7,200 and whatever it is. They want the difference between the appraised value and the balloon payment, which, you know, depending on how that thing appraises out, I mean, the balloon payment was 185,000 or something like that. So if you know, if that thing appraises $125,000, that's a chunk of change that, you know, has to be paid back to get out of the contract, and then the county doesn't have the equipment. That's kind of what I think we're looking at, and I think that's what we need to get Lowell on board with, is evaluating that part of the contract and figuring out how we loose ourselves from that contract, how District 2 looses himself from that contract prior to his expiration of term of service, because there's a statute that requires that to be done as
Yeah.
well.
So what year model is this, Gregor?
15.
You got 15, well, they
And
just
it's a
bid.
140 3M, isn't it? Yeah.
So they
3M.
just bid a 140, a 2011 140 with how many hours on it?
That was mine.
7,000,
6,000.
6,000 something hours on it, just under 7,000.
So they bid that at 100 and, what was it, number? I don't remember. I'm just trying to get some numbers in my head here.
It was 112, I think, somewhere around there.
112.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe 120.
You're in the other room.
Yeah. And so 125, we're looking at $60,000 just to give it back.
So anyway, well, I guess we'll wait for the information
Maybe.
if you'll send.
Maybe.
Well, we're gonna reevaluate the appraisal. I mean, we do have that. You're talking, you're just waiting for the appraisal. Yeah.
No. Well, have we started anything to get it appraised?
Well, it's something you might check into. I ain't
Okay.
sure, don't say in the lease. Let's just say that your payment was $1,000. I mean, I think they would divide that by 160 hours. They'll give you your hourly rate. So if you went ahead and kept the machine and just paid per hour, you know, at $12.50 an hour, well, I mean, could you get out of the contract that way? Just
Monty, I asked
finish it?
that question if there was a charge per hour, and they said no, it's not. The way that they
Okay.
propose to get out of the contract is to assess the current value of the grader with the hours that's on it, and that number minus the buyback price of $185,000 is what the county owes. Or they would also take the assessed value and use that as a trade-in on a new piece of equipment that the county could lease purchase again. I think that, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's normally what we've done.
well,
Traded in on a new one.
but it's not ours. I mean, so that appraised value that's not the county's value to trade in. And so I would like to get some explanation on what exactly that meant. But at this point, I'm not sure that we want to pursue getting into another long-term contract, especially, Mike, with,
Sure.
you going out. I think that the new commissioner should at least have some input on whether or not he wants to do that or not, and if he does, what company you would like to do it with. And I think I'm not sure legally you can enter into a long-term contract again, is kind of where I'm going with that.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
You're right. But legally, I don't know that I can get out of what we already own. So,
Right.
we'll see. See how that all works out.
Yeah. Well, Troy had a really good idea on our leases. When we renew a lease, I mean, we ought to have to list the hours on there, and I mean, then the board knows, you know, what you're signing, instead of just one individual district knowing. And that might help prevent this happening again, because I mean, I certainly could happen to anybody. But anyway, so no action on this today. I mean, we don't have the information we need, so.
Right.
You good with that? We're gonna put it back.
I'm good with, we need to, I think we need to send, as a board, a note to Lowell asking him to, asking the status, where he thinks we're at on it, that sort of stuff.
Do you mind sending that to him?
Do that.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, so is that it on the addendum, no action? We'll place it back on the agenda when we have the information,
Yes.
please.
And if you could go back to the
I see that.
top.
So we'll jump back to item 5. It's going to be consideration and possible action to approve plat of Whitetail Crossing, 3rd edition, in the northeast quarter of section 2917, north on west.
We have Whitetail 1, this is the cul-de-sac from Whitetail 1. Whitetail 2 is what we opened here just a few years ago. This is Highway 33, Anderson Road. And what we're doing is just extending roads in that are in Whitetail 2 into Whitetail 3, making them larger, little larger lots.
How many homes do you expect to have out there?
Total, probably 60. We have, I think, 16 now. We started, I believe we started building 3.5 years ago. We have
Their access is 33, right?
133.
I think that's what we have to sign, ain't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. These are just all the protections for the seal.
So do you have the language in there where these are private maintained roads?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Do you see it?
Not yet. Whereabouts is that at, as far as the language on the roads?
Right up here in the owner's dedication. About halfway down. Yeah, let's see.
Let's see it.
Yes.
Well, it's here.
I can't see it.
This is copies of those bids.
I don't see it on here, but
We have to have magnifying glasses.
We'll find it. I've read it. So.
You all right?
Over on the far side, look at that Okie 811. Go down the second paragraph.
Can you see that thing? That's blurry.
second paragraph, where?
Right there.
All roads herein will be maintained by the homeowners association and are not the responsibility of Logan County. There we go.
Man, that's what I was hunting for.
I move we approve.
Not that we wouldn't like to.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I think I seen it just set up for the chairman. Is that what I seen?
Sure. Yes.
Better do that one more time.
Who gets that?
And this is the last one, I've run out of room.
It's set to be attested. Oh, I need to finish filling it in.
And then you take it straight over to the clerk's office and they'll record it.
Did we vote on
We, motion and seconded,
I think so.
did we vote on it? I'm not sure.
that? Just in case, all in favor, say
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Motion carried.
Okay.
Good luck with it.
Huh? Only the chairman.
Okay.
Back to the regular course of agenda was on item 18, comments, announcements, questions by the board.
I actually think that we stopped before we finished 17.
Yep.
Any citizen?
Oh, any citizen desire to be heard?
Well.
18, comments, announcements, questions by the board of county commissioners. Mike, do you have anything?
Oh, I got a text. Is that from you, Eric? On the Lazy E situation with the ambulance, let's see, special event standbys work. It's all contractual between the provider and the event. The Lazy E pays for each event. Our 522 EMS district is for emergency 911 ambulance service, not emergency events like special event standby.
Okay, we done.
I think we finished that one.
We've done beat that horse.
Yeah, well, it was commissioner's minutes, and I thought I'd throw it in there
Of course.
because apparently we got it a little bit wrong. It's an individual item. It's not part of what the EMS board even looks at. So, anyway,
Today.
that's all I have.
All right. Marvin?
I do have one thing, has to do with Lowell. And the sheriff, I'm going to implicate you just for a minute, sir, if you don't mind. We've got a couple of communities, at least one right now, and there will be more in South County that are asking for golf carts to be allowed in the unincorporated areas and in some of the housing developments. They've been beating the sheriff and me up pretty good on opinions on different statutes and that kind of stuff. And I think we've done a really good job of answering all those questions and getting the information back to the people and providing consistent guidance back to them on that. One of the things that we've been asked, that we will be asked to consider here pretty quick in the future, is allowing or passing a resolution allowing golf carts in parts of the county. And so after reading the legislation on that, I had three questions that I sent to Lowell on it. He just got back to us. I'll send that to Troy and have her distribute it out to you guys. But the bottom line is we can designate a certain neighborhood as a golf cart area. We don't have to do a resolution for the whole county, right? That was my first thing. So would we have to do one for the whole county and open it up? The other one was that the statutes talk about a limit of no less than 30 miles an hour on county roads in unincorporated areas, except for, makes exceptions for school zones. It's Lowell's opinion that this statute that talks about the golf carts supersedes that and then allows us to do that in a limited area. The other one had to do with the signage, right? So in a private neighborhood that maintains their own streets, like we've gone through here, where they post speed limits of 25 miles an hour, which is required here, and that golf carts may be allowed and that sort of stuff. It's Lowell's opinion that the streets don't have to be owned by the county for us to be able to manage what goes on those signs to allow golf carts. So did I cover that as well as you understood it too, Sheriff? So Damon, if you'd like to add anything to that, I know we've talked about also ATVs come into that, which is a whole different part of the statute and that sort of stuff. So,
Well, I mean, it's kind of a unique deal in the fact that we, in a lot of these private neighborhoods, we don't police golf carts. If they want to ride golf carts in that neighborhood and they can do it responsibly, we really don't have an issue with it. But this statute allows that to be done legally. The issue's always been with us, can we enforce speed limits in those privately owned road neighborhoods? Can we enforce stop signs? Can we enforce any of that stuff? And it's always been from the district attorneys that handle those cases is we can't enforce any sign that's not a county posted sign. So you have these additions that will put up speed limit signs, per the HOA, stop signs per the HOA, and those are private signs on a private road that the public has access to. The only thing that we can enforce there is reckless driving. There's a few things that we can enforce. I can't write a speeding citation based on an HOA sign. It's got to be a county sign. And as far as the signage, if they are going to have golf carts, they have to have signs posted that they allow golf carts. And I assume that the neighborhoods would pay for that. I don't know.
well, yeah, I would. I mean, that would be something. As we take this up as a board, as we allow or don't in certain areas of the county that to happen, I think that's something that we would cover as well. But it's interesting that there's the different interpretation. What the sheriff just talked about was that they can't enforce HOA placed signs, right? So, but could you enforce a sign that the HOA bought that the county said this is the requirement on a privately maintained road? I think what Lowell said was yes, but what we're getting conflicting information is what I think I hear on that particular issue. So that's something that we need to work out with Lowell and the folks and the Sheriff's Association does a real good job of distributing that information throughout. So I think that there's some room for negotiation.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's our district attorney is the one that says what goes in the county. So, but again, we don't want to force anything that doesn't make sense either. So I bring that up to the board because that's something that we're probably going to be asked to do in the next several months. And I'll name the addition. Cascada Falls wants to have. There's some folks in Cascada Falls that want to have golf carts to be able to drive around inside their neighborhood.
So we can actually do one for the whole county.
We can. Yes.
Okay, so what about UTV? I mean, up in my farming community, everyone rides a side by side feeding cows, and
That's right.
so
Yep, they're perfectly fine
Yeah.
right now, or if we did this.
Right now.
right now.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's a whole different statute now, a different area of the law than the golf cart issue. The golf cart issue is a little bit specialized.
Mhm.
It's kind of convoluted when you try to make heads or tails of what they're saying in the statute.
Well, you have people that go pick up their mail, with the front
Yeah,
of
I don't have any
addition,
problems with
and such as
responsible
that.
riding of ATVs
What I
or
question is their liability. Of course, that's a civil matter. But back when my wife got hit by a three-wheeler that was coming out of a driveway in her vehicle, and we wound up having to pay the deductible on that.
Well, right now, three-wheelers are not allowed. It's gotta be, it's a four-wheel vehicle.
Well, even a four-wheeler, if they don't have some kind of insurance, well, then they're out there with no insurance. And so right there is a violation of
Yeah,
state
but the
law.
statute doesn't say you have to have insurance.
Yeah,
Statute says you gotta have a driver's license.
it has to have a driver's license, so it doesn't have to be tagged or anything of that nature.
Anything else?
That's all I
Or
have.
let it fall.
I got a question for the sheriff. What about the contract with the city of Guthrie on civil defense?
If you want, we can put that on the next agenda, or we can discuss it now.
I mean, if we're gonna make a decision, we probably need to put it on the agenda.
Okay, I'll give it to Troy and we'll.
All right. How about item 19, consideration of possible action on adjournment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Adjourned. Guys, thank you.